welcome to my channel Simsational Builds. My name is Deb and today we're going to be doing a tutorial on how to build natural pools and waterfalls within The Sims. My aim for this video is to help you build these pools to look as natural as possible so they look like they were always been there. Obviously you can alter these to suit your own style and make them look more refined for more modern builds or whatever your heart desires, but in this particular tutorial I do want to show you how to make them look as natural as possible. So first up, what you want to do is use your pool or your fountain tool. Now I do prefer using the pool tool in this one here instead of the fountain one, but again, to each your own desires. So what you want is to grab the custom pool tool. Now again, when you're building a really natural looking pool, you don't want to have hard lines, square shapes, anything like that. So you're going to make this want to look as random as possible. So don't be afraid to do obviously some square sections, go in a bit. We're going to be hiding all of this as well, all of the edges that we've made. So it doesn't matter what shape your pool is at the end. So you'll end up with something like this, just a weird, strange, jaggedy shape to suit whatever build you're doing. Let's start off with that. To make it really simple, what I first like to do is just lower it just by one click so that it's very slightly into the ground. Using your wallpaper tool and going down a level, you can actually see inside the pool itself, and a lot of people don't know that you can actually change the wallpaper within the pool. So you can actually do whatever you'd like on the inside. You can make it entirely blue, whatever. Sometimes it looks really nice having stone on the inside. If you want it to make it look like just like a pond kind of pool, this one here works really well. What's it called? It's Clean Room. Comes in a bunch of different colors. The dark one actually works really well as well. And same thing with the floor. You can do any sort of flooring you like. Again, so where is it? I think it's in miscellaneous. Yep, you've got bottom of the basement. It comes in the same color swatches as the walls. And if I just get rid of the grid lines, you can see there that it just looks like a dirt hole in the ground. If we change the edges of the pool, the trim, sorry, you can just stick with that one there and make it brown if you like. Or if you do have this, the Get Together expansion pack, the rocky pool trim is also quite good as well with that rock edges. Now, without adding rocks all around the sides, which is one way to make it look natural, if you don't have the time or the patience for that, one way to sort of make it look more natural is by using your terrain paint. In here, into the dirt ones. Any one of the dirt ones will do. I like using the Smarter Starter Soil. The plain trim might have actually worked a little bit better. So if I just make that brown, there we go. So without doing anything more, it's already starting to look a little bit better, a little bit more natural. Now, if you do have either Jungle Adventure or the Get Together packs, these waters are better for making it look like a natural pond because they're not quite as sparkly. Even that one there is okay if you want it to look like nice and clean than the standard one that you get. This one here is probably one of my favorite ones because it still looks sort of clean, but it doesn't look quite as dirty as, say, the Get Together ones. They look a little bit more murky. Basically, I'd want to swim in that a little bit more than I'd want to swim in this one. But it depends what look you're going for as well. So there's the most basic way you can do it. But there are... Sorry, I'm just going to move that out a little bit more. But there are other ways that you can make it look more natural as well. So again, without using rocks, you can use some plants. And the good thing about the pool tool is that the plants... Oh, sorry, you will need to turn on your cheat bb.moveobjects on for this one here. So it automatically snaps to the edges, which works really well for what we're doing here. So just getting some random, bushes and things like that around the edge can really make all the difference. And even if they go into the pool a little bit, that's fine. I mean, I know it's not that realistic, but it makes it look a lot better. These reeds are a really good one as well. And I'm kind of doing really random things right now, and you could probably do a lot better than what I am doing at the moment. But I just sort of wanted to give you an idea that just by adding the the plants, and you don't need to add them all the way around. You can just add them to a section, and rocks is the biggest and easiest way to make it look natural because they snap to the edge and they hide the entire edge of the pool. And you can also size them up using your square bracket or size them down, and just by putting a few of them around and rotating them a bit, automatically you have something that looks a lot better there. Another way to do it without the plants is to just use rocks all the way around, and I tend to do that quite a lot and then accent it with plants afterwards. Now this is a pretty time consuming thing. I just use these standard ones. There are a lot of debug ones around that you can use as well. Again, depends on what look you want. This just tends to be the fastest because I don't need to scroll through it, and I can click shift and duplicate them as well. Basically what you just want to do is just randomly pick them and rotate them. Like I said, you can size them up or down to add more randomness. So I'm just going to fast forward the video now. So there is the final pool with all the rocks laid around it, and I think this is probably the easiest way to make it look natural. You can even, like I say, size the rocks up a bit more in certain sections. I think that looks really good as well. So say if I wanted to make this entire side of it, and even if you've got the same rock side by side, if you just rotate it a bit, it works really well. And don't worry about them clipping over each other. When it's all done and dusted, it does actually look really natural. So that already starting to look really good. Now let's add some plants to it. But again, you just have to sort of play around with it. There's no real right or wrong way to make it look good. Like I said, I don't mind it clipping into the water a lot of the time. It looks pretty good. You can also, if you want your Sims to actually swim in it, just delete a couple of sections and add in, here we are, a ladder. This rock ladder here from Get Together is really good because it blends in beautifully with the rocks as well around it. It has that nice sort of rusty finish. You might need to play test that to make sure that the rocks aren't too close, but now your Sims can get in and out of there as well without breaking up the look of the pool. You can also, within the pool itself, don't be afraid to add some, say, bushes or something like that to the bottom of it to give it that look of, not necessarily seaweed, but the water plants. This one here is a pretty good one from Jungle Adventures. Mix them up a bit, because when you go up, you will actually be able to see it through the water itself. And again, depending if what water you decide to use, oops, if you do use the more clear one, you'll be able to see it through the water. And again, it just adds to that natural look that we're going for. And the Sims can still swim in there and everything like that. Again, you can make this as big or as small as you like. You can make a creek with it. You can do a river. You can build a bridge over the top of it, although that's a tutorial for another day. And we can add a waterfall to a side if you'd like. So if we add a waterfall over here, let me just delete these plants that we've got, or maybe I'll just move them. So what we need to do is we need to create the levels for the water to actually fall down on. So there's a couple of different ways you can do that. You can do it with creating another pool or a fountain and raising it up to the right level. They can't actually be touching. That's the biggest thing that we have to make sure that we do. So we have to raise it up. So as you can see, we've got that raised up there. And that will give us enough space for the water to fall down. Now we have to hide it because it looks a little bit weird. Again, we use the same sort of wall and the same floor. But once again, using your rocks in particular, they're probably the easiest way to make it look natural. You're going to have to go around it and hide what you've done. Now, sometimes these rocks do float when you have it up here. So see that one there, it's sort of floating in midair. You just sort of have to maybe make it a bit bigger and lower it, and then if there's still a gap underneath it, just shove rocks everywhere. Honestly, they will hide it, and even though it might, when you're doing it, it might look a little bit weird, when it's all done and dusted, that pile of rocks actually can look quite realistic. Alright, so when you're done that, you're ending up with something like this. Now, you'll find that adding rocks on this side is going to be very difficult because it's very steep. If you needed to add rocks there to keep the sort of look, what I recommend to do is go down a level, and here you'll be able to raise them up till they're the right height. You can see there it actually blends in really nicely. So you can, if you need to, fill up more rocks there. What I would probably do is add in the water fountain first to give it that waterfall look, and then continue adding rocks to make it look more natural. So to actually create the waterfall itself, you're going to need to go into your fountain tool, this one here. Nope, sorry, this one here, the water emitter. Now, the size of it will depend on the height and distance of your fountain. I don't like to go too far or too high because then it starts to ruin the illusion and makes it a bit harder. If you want it to be a bit higher, I would recommend adding multiple levels. So doing exactly what I did here, but before adding all the rocks, just add all your pools, make them the right heights, and then place all your rocks all the way around it as suits. So what you want is the spraying one, not the leaping one. And instead of going up here, what you'll notice if you go here is that the water lands in the middle of nowhere, and you don't want that. In fact, I think this one might be a little bit small. What you want is, see this area from the very top of it to where it goes down. This part here has to be at this top level, not this part, because if you add this to the top, the water's flying through the air. Now, if you think about water and how it behaves, that's not what actually works in a natural looking waterfall. Again, I'm not trying to make this look like a fountain. I'm trying to make it look like a natural free flowing waterfall. So I don't want the water to go there. I want this part here to be flowing down this the angle there that I've got. So what I probably need is a larger one, probably the medium one, because that length looks more like what I have here. So again, how do I get it there? Because when I try and put it here, everything's sitting on top. You're going to have to go down. And in fact, I probably should have done that a pool instead of a fountain, because I need to be a little bit lower. So what I'm quickly going to do, and I really hope that this doesn't destroy everything that I've built here. Again, I've got move objects on, so it shouldn't. I'm going to change this into a pool. If you're going to have to use a pool for your second level, I would change the foundation into, so I would use this one here, probably in a darker color to make it blend in a little bit more. So if I just stick with that one there, see the edge is nice and thin, that'll be the easiest to hide. I'm going to see if I can adjust the terrain. Okay, sorry everyone. So I've had to modify it slightly. I would recommend, if you're going to be doing a waterfall, to actually place the pools first before you place all the rocks. Just because I was trying to show you the pool first as one option and then show you to do the waterfall, it obviously didn't work that way when I would usually do it the other way, but I have fiddled with it a little bit, so I've gotten us back to pretty much where we were before. A little bit of the pool edge is showing, but that should be fine. We should be able to hide it with the water, and if not, we can always place some rocks underneath to hide it as well. And end up with a much more natural look. So as you can see, that looks a lot better already, and I might even just leave that one there, but you can play around. Thing about these pools is that they are really time consuming. I wouldn't recommend it if you're trying to do something really quick, but if you do want to spend some time on a place that, you know, really deserves the extra attention, or a mansion or something like that, it can be really effective. So where I was at before, my little error with the fountain / pool is that we need to use a large enough water emitter that has this section here, the falling section, to cover the space from the top here, because that's where you want it to just go over to actually, the bottom of it to actually hit the pool itself, or at least very, very close to. If it's too high up, it isn't going to look natural. So grabbing hold of the water meter and again going down to our basement level, what we want is to raise it up. Now, I generally place a whole bunch of these. Now, you're going to need to use a lot. That's the other trick to make this look as natural as possible. So using the shift key, I place down a whole bunch of them. Oops. Try and keep them all in the same direction, just to make life a bit easier for me, so I can just click and pull. Another step to make it look as natural as possible is to using the closed bracket, or so the open square bracket, to size the emitter down as small as possible. It's not necessary, and oftentimes it is hidden, but it does help. Once we've got our emitter and we've got it facing the right direction, using your 9 key, you want to raise it up until you're at the right height. Now, keeping in mind that the edge of this pool is not there. Sorry, I'm just going to size this up because I'm going to need to grab it again. You're going to need to get it at the right height. Now, this is probably a touch too high. I want it to just go over the edge of that, the lip of that pool itself. So as you can see, it's going a little bit too high. I want it to just sort of just go over the top of the lip of the pool. So using 0, I'm just going to lower it once again. It's hard to judge, but once you got the first one, the rest of them are easier. And using your Alt key, you can free place it as well off the grid. Here it's falling a little bit too far. I would actually want to move it back a little bit. Like I said, the first few are hard and then the rest of them you just match up, so it's a bit easier. So I might leave that one for now because it's falling down here all right, and I might need to use some rocks to fill up that space a little bit more. If you type in your cheat code bb.showhiddenobjects and bb.showliveeditobjects, and then you can either search for debug in here, or you just press the little search key and you scroll down. All the rocks are in all together, so it makes it a bit easier to find. Unfortunately, we can't search. Here we are. So these are all the rocks that we get with all your different packs. Depending on what packs you have will be what rocks you get. But these cliff rocks here, I find are one of the best ones to use for this sort of thing. You have to size it down and then obviously raise it up. As you can see there, just by placing one, that fills up a lot of space without me having to muck around too long with placing, 100 million rocks. And then you can just use your normal small ones to just sort of fill in the gaps a little bit where you might need them. Like I say, I find that when you start adding the angles and whatnot, it ends up being a little bit harder to... So when it's on an angle like that, it's a little bit harder to actually fill in those gaps. And you don't want it to go too high up. You want that lip to be free of any rocks here, because obviously you don't want the water to be lower than the rocks themselves. So if I just place that one here, oops, go where I want you to go, here. When you have a waterfall, the water doesn't leap over rocks, it just falls gradually down. Obviously, I have the problem of the water being slightly lower, but I try and hide that as best as possible with the fountain itself. You can also use a terrain paint tool, again, depending on how steep this angle is, and make it a more rocky one. And that will also just help hide a few little bits and pieces that you weren't able to get to with the rocks. So I think we've got a pretty natural looking rock face there for our water to fall down. So let's get onto the actual building, the actual fountain again. Now, this is the problem that you get when you start mucking around. I can't actually move this water fountain now because it's hidden behind walls and rocks and whatnot. So I'm just going to leave it there. It's not too far out of place. If you had to find it, you could start moving the walls back and moving the rocks aside and things like that. But I'm not going to do that today. I didn't have time. Okay. So there we go. So I'm just going to start placing them where I think it works. So as you can see, it's only just going over the top of the rocks there and going down into it. And as you can see, that second one that I placed looks a whole lot more natural than the first one. Just falling down the rocks. And don't be afraid if the rocks sort of hide a few bits of the water, because again, when we've got a natural waterfall, the water doesn't all go down in one direction. We can also start changing the direction that the water's falling in here, especially because I've got a bit of an angle on this side. But see here, so the easiest way to do it is I find to line it up like that, and then I can get it to the same height, or at least similar height. Little differences in height are fine, because again, water is a natural thing and it will fall down how it needs to. But see, that one's a little bit too fast. See how the water's sort of just like falling over the top of it. I might leave it and put the other ones a little bit closer. I just have this as a this particular bit of water going a little bit further. So I'm going to speed it up now, so because this again is a hugely time consuming thing to do, especially if you want to make it look as natural as possible. And just place a few more around where I think will look good. Now, as I'm doing this, again, the biggest tip or trick that I've got for you is that place heaps of them. When you think you've got enough, place more, because that's the biggest thing to making it look natural, is so they're not sparse. The water should look like it's sort of free flowing and that there's heaps of it. When they're too sparse, it just will lose that effect of looking as natural as possible. So I'll just fast forward now and you'll be able to see the final product soon. Alright, so you can see where I'm at, as you can see, is this one here. Now, you could add a lot more water to that if you wanted to. This one here, because it's not too big of an area, I'm just going to keep it sort of basic for now. So yeah, like you would have seen, not all of them have to be the same height. They can be very slightly differing heights. Change the angle around as well. Water doesn't naturally always fall in one angle, especially because this is going around a curve and going over rocks. Water will fall in different directions. So change that around as well. Again, it is obviously going up a little bit, but I can't change that because I can't make the water level at the same level as the edge of the pool itself. You can add some more rocks there to hide that a little bit more also. I might add one on this edge here because that looks a little bit funny. But there we have it. I'm going to add some trees and bushes around it now. And the last thing we want is to also add in some lily pads, maybe even some algae. Again, this depends on what packs you've got as to what you can have available to you to use. With the algae, I tend to prefer to put it in little corners. Again, depending on the packs that you've got, which will be available to you, most of these are in the Get Together pack, but they have these steamers or bubbles, cracks, and those ones there, again picking color that will sort of blend in the most, really give it the sort of ambiance, and you'll see what I mean when I put it onto live mode. The steamer things at the bottom are those bubbles, and add this sort of mist to the top of your natural pond. You can add less, you can just put one of them if you wanted to. So there you have it, guys. There's your natural pool that your Sims can swim around in, swim underneath that little waterfall that you've got as well. I hope you guys have enjoyed this tutorial. I hope you guys find it helpful. I look forward to seeing all of your beautiful natural pools and waterfalls in future. If you do one after seeing this tutorial, please tag me. I would love to see it. It'll make me really happy, actually. Let me know in the comments below if you do have any questions or anything that I forgot to mention. And if you did like this video, I would love if you would give it a like and subscribe. And I'll see you all again next time. Thanks so much. Bye for now.